Good evening, everybody. Once again, welcome to another exciting IncrediChat here. We are gearing up this weekend, and we're going to talk a little bit about that with our guests, but we're gearing up this weekend because it is the Saratoga Comic-Con up in Saratoga, New York, Saratoga Springs. So if you're in the area, certainly come and check that out. We've had a bunch of great guests who are going to be there this weekend. And tonight's guest is one of those great guests that you can see in person. So please welcome a wonderful voice actress, Stephanie, and I hope I'm going to Panisello. Did I say it right?
You actually did get it right. You did get it right. You totally got it. I'm always like, how will this be pronounced when I see the pause?
Well, you saw me pause there for a minute too. I was like, oh, I forgot to ask her, and I meant to ask you. Good. Stephanie Panisello is here tonight. Awesome. Stephanie, welcome. Welcome, and thank you for joining us tonight. So we're going to talk a little bit tonight about just voices, cartoons, anime, because you've done a little bit of everything, and you're in some pretty hot properties. I guess first things first, before we dive into that world of properties, is how did you get into the acting bug, voice acting to be specific, but acting-wise, what's your background? What got you started?
Ooh, okay. Well, to be honest, I did not think I was going to be doing any of this as a career ever. When I was a kid, though, I did have a natural kind of tendency to go towards either writing plays for my brothers to perform in, or being in every play as a kid, or, having my own morning announcement show. And so that was something I naturally had a knack for, but I never thought of it as a career. I legit, for some reason, and I don't know if other people out there can agree with me, I just thought some people were just kind of actors and they were famous, and I had no clue how to do it. So, and I fell into that, and that's how I felt about it. So
let me ask you, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Okay. Well, it depended on when you asked me. Growing up, there was a time when I wanted to be the president of the United States. There was, I feel like that was probably the biggest one I think that I wanted to be. I know when I was really little, though, there was a time when I wanted to be in Broadway. And I had my first grade teacher was so lovely, and she was always like, I can't wait to see you in Broadway, which, by the way, that would be so interesting if she ever watched this. But I never thought of it after the fact. It was always kind of like, I wanted to be, like I said, the president, or I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to start an NGO. And so it was like very different. And yeah, it was actually the fact that I just naturally had a love and an affinity for it. And so I just kept doing it in all different aspects. Even when I was in college, I was a part of stuff, still not thinking that I would go, and major in it, because, how are you an actor? Those are just famous people, right?
For that.
Yeah. But I did end up coming out to Los Angeles on vacation, and my parents were both super supportive. My mom was actually the one that kept pushing it and kept saying, why don't you try it, honey? Why don't you try it? And I'm really glad she did, because I came out on vacation to come visit my best friend, and I never left. I legit tried it. And when people would ask me what I was doing out here, I'd be like, oh, well, my mom wants me to be an actress. Which sounds like the complete opposite what a lot of people's stories are, but it's true, and I'm really glad that it worked out that way, because it allowed me to tap into a whole side that I didn't even know when I was a kid was what I should have naturally had been in as an adult. So,
well, I mean, and that's awesome that you had that positive encouragement from your parents. Because and again, I shared with you earlier, I work with kids. So sometimes people don't like, acting is one of those things. It's like, well, you try it, but always have something to fall back on, and you went out, you did it, and here we are now, right?
I honestly had the opposite reaction. It's so funny. I had some of the most supportive teachers, actually. And I had an assistant vice principal too, who would always come to all my shows when I was in middle school. Mm-hmm. For some reason, like, everybody else saw it, but I didn't realize it. So I'm really glad. I'm very fortunate that was the case, because not it, like you said, it's not always the case for everyone. And one of the biggest things we always get asked, it's so funny. So I do voiceover and motion capture, and people always go, oh, so what can I see you in? And then I'll like explain some video games and animation. And they're like, oh, okay, but do you do any real acting? And I always freeze. Because I'm like, I don't think people are aware of what it is that we do. Like, like, do you not realize that it actually is acting? So it's quite funny. It's funny, but it's a nice learning curve for a lot of people. So
So when you got out to LA, so you started in, I guess, were you taking classes? Were you doing improv? Were you just going just to all the open auditions, everything that you could sink your teeth into and get into? What were you doing when you got out there?
So when I got out here, the first thing I did, funny enough, was because I didn't have a plan to do this. So I honestly had no idea. So I was like, okay, well, how do I get myself on set as quickly as possible just to understand what it's like? And so I started doing like background work, and I was just like, okay. But I would bring a notebook with me and I would ask questions from everybody. Like, it didn't matter what position, what anything you were doing, from other background actors who were also, they just happened to do that as a side gig while they were also, going out for bigger jobs. I made friends with directors and ADs and PAs and just everybody. And I would just have a notebook with like all this information because I just wanted to soak it up as fast as I could. And I knew that no matter who it was, someone was going to give me a tidbit of something, that I could use. And so that's kind of what I did. I also was doing acting classes as well. And then I had to end up working. I ended up having to, funny enough, because I wasn't prepared to move out to LA, I didn't have a car out yet. So I ended up having to walk to these bus stops constantly. And one time I missed a bus. And that ended up getting me in trouble with the agency who would cast all that stuff. And I got kicked out.
Oh, wow.
So I was out of it for 3 months. And I was like, what do I do? And I'm fortunate enough that I was like, you know what? I'm not going to let that be what, messes everything up. I'm going to figure it out. And so I started working at a Starbucks as a barista because I heard, oh, it's going to be really easy and flexible for you to be able to pursue your career, which was a bunch of BS, to be honest with you. It was one of the busiest Starbucks possible. And it was an interesting experience because it was quite humbling. I had to go from having a degree and, having already been in like the world of, like business side, and having to come down and go, okay, what do I want of this? And where am I going? And can I really take this and use it and make it a good experience? And so what I did was exactly that. I ended up taking pride in what I was doing. So I would give it 110%. And I would do stand-up comedy at night. So I would go do stand-up and I would just learn and like practice that craft because I wanted to get really comfortable with, writing your material, performing, and failing. That was the big one. I wanted to learn how to fail and then get back up again and keep going again, And so that was really a big deal. It changed the way I saw everything. It opened up a lot of doors for me in a lot of ways because now my improv skills like just shot up because I was able to just kind of go through that. And also the coolest thing was that one of my customers ended up being a engineer at one of the sound studios. And he was like, hey, I always notice that on your breaks, you're always writing. He's like, what are you doing out here? And I was like, well, my mom wants me to be an actress. So, and he's like, well, have you ever thought about voiceover? And I'm really glad he said that because I was like, yeah, I think it'd be fascinating. I was like, I love video games already. And I love animation and I love all of this stuff, but I have no clue how to get into it. He's like, oh, well, read this book. And he didn't think I was going to take it seriously, but he didn't know who he was talking to. And the first thing I did was find that book. And I read that book. And then he's like, oh, well, check out this website. And then I went on that website and I read up on all of it. And then he's like, well, do you want to come in and just watch how it's like? And I said, yes, I do. And so any opportunity that I could get, I would show up. And then a position opened up for their production side. And I went for the job and I pushed through and I got the job. And then an actress didn't show up. And then that day, the director looked over and said, if only we had an actress here. And I looked around humbly thinking, oh, okay. And then I was like, oh, wait, me. So, and I got to jump in and I got to play an NPC character, actually 3 NPC characters. But that changed everything because I got tapped hardly that day.
Yeah.
I was ready because I'd been preparing this whole time. I didn't get my ego in the way because I was like, hey, I'm going to learn from the masters. And here I am. So it's really been, as far as like, how did I get there? Like, it was schooling through a lot of different ways. It was through actual classes. It was through, getting up there on stage and doing the stand up. It was through watching the best of the best. And it was through asking anyone that I knew that had any part in this industry questions.
Yeah.
And I would just listen. So.
I'm just going to go right here to because we have people already chiming in.
Oh, yeah.
Sergio already said, how did you get involved in acting? And you just kind of gave that whole story, and which is, you got here in time for that.
Perfect.
But I mean, the one thing you said is like you really paid your dues when you got out there, and I think with young people today, and I'm sure when you go to do conventions and appearances, people always ask you, how do you get in? I want to do video games. How do you do that? And a lot of people nowadays think being famous, if you will, and being a voice actor, being an actor, whatever, it just comes easily because you just go on there. You've got to see on YouTube or TikTok, whatever it is, and it's all about the followers, but they don't understand it. For some of those people who do go online and like the TikTokers or whatever, some of them are lucky and it just hits them. But like you're explaining, it does take work. You need to know the ins and outs of the business. I think what you said about just taking notes from there, you saw the good, the bad, and the ugly, just being a background person, because they don't care about all the extras. So you just sit there and you're watching Hollywood happen in front of you, so you knew what to do. And all the voice actors I've spoken with, and even like some of the people from Muppets, it's all about the improv. Like you really know, and being able to take those chances, understanding to fail, and then pick yourself back up and keep going, because you have to in showbiz, you really have to get a thick skin.
You gotta, it's so funny because you have to have thick skin, but also be very vulnerable and stay authentic. And it's such an interesting balance to kind of keep and to stay true to yourself, because it's such an easy business to kind of get lost in. And you could either get lost and like, you're just like desperate for work and it rubs off and you can see it. And it's like, ooh, and nobody really wants that because it's a weird energy to be around. Or you lose yourself because you try to be part of the cool crew and you kind of go the wrong route and you get lost. Or you just try to be something that you're not to create an image. And then you realize, oh, you kind of lost yourself in the process. And so it's a really interesting thing, because I think, honestly, the biggest thing you can do is just know who you are, figure that out. What are your values? And then you just stay true throughout the whole entire thing. And whoever likes you will stay, and whoever doesn't won't hire you. And that's better, because you probably didn't want to be part of the project. So and then you just, those are the people that kind of stick around. And the more you see people like that, those people have longevity in the career, and I feel like ultimately, like, it also, you can't lie in front of okay, behind the camera, you could act a certain way, right? But if you're going to go meet fans and stuff, everyone's going to know if you're legit or not. It's very real right away. When you meet a person face to face, like, I mean, I won't get into stories. I met one actress that I was like, man, she was never acting. Like, she really was that mean.
Sure. We all have those stories. We all have those stories. But yeah, it's 100% true, And I know, I again, just different actresses who I've met over the years, and especially in the voice, there's a lot of people who you just have that longevity, and you see the authenticity that comes from them. I know someone on my Facebook feed here, they want to know, what's the name of that book that you read?
Oh, it was voiceover. What was it? It was voiceover actor. It was Yuri Lowenthal and Tara Platt who wrote it.
Okay.
So, and it was a great introduction book because they did a really nice way of breaking it down into like the different types of voiceover, what
Mhm.
is voiceover, and then just like technical things like when you go into a booth and go, give me an ABC, and you're like, if you don't know what that means, you're like, like, so an ABC means give me take A, take B, take C of the same line, or give me an A, B, or we're just going to run some A's. Like if you walk in, you have no clue. So it's little things like that they just did a really good job of kind of explaining it. They also have this great chart on how to create characters through, I think it was pitch and cadence, I believe, or there's like 3 parts to it. It's really interesting. So, but great book. And it was a nice introduction for me. And it was really cool too, because I've actually since then worked with Yuri like on a couple of things already. And on one project, like he ended up being like my boyfriend in it. So I was like, what are the odds of like that full circle? Like I read the book that you guys wrote and here we are. So yeah.
Well, and I guess you said you're a fan of video games, you're a fan of cartoons and stuff. You mentioned Yuri. I mean, I'm sure you've gotten to work with some of these people who are like, wow, I watched you or I played you.
Oh,
And that in its own right is a surreal, or you're doing these shows and you're sitting next to somebody who you're like, wow.
Oh, like Debbie Derryberry? Like, I
She's
mean,
a great one.
holy, like,
Jimmy
and then
Neutron.
her and I worked together on something. And I was like,
Yeah.
she was the only person that I ever was like, hey, can I take a picture with you? Like, I never do that because it feels wrong. It feels unprofessional for me to do that. But I totally was like, is this okay? So yeah.
She's one of those she's one of those really genuine people.
Yeah, for sure. She's like really good with character creation too. So
Yeah. And that's the one thing too. And I think whoever it was that gave you the advice got you into that book is that they were honest with you, and like they saw what you were doing. They saw your real interest, and then when you went in there, like you said, you were ready. They said we need an actress. Here it is, and here you are, and that opened up all those other doors. And again, all these great voice people who do coaching and stuff. It's about finding that voice and that authenticity. So let's talk about finding your voice, right? So you got into this video game. Well, after that, where did we go to? Was it more into the anime side, or because I know you do the Resident Evil game? Where did you go from that chance recording session?
Well, then I went to a lot more behind the scenes work.
Okay.
It's not like people think that you just all of a sudden like boom and now that's it. It's not how it works. Like you kind of have to like go through it. And it's funny because I actually was simultaneously working production while I was also acting. And so much so that I, at one point, had already worked on Resident Evil 2, and I was working production on Gears 4 or 5. I don't remember which one I was working on. Actually, I think it was on 5. We were working on it. And then, so Morgan, who's the person who actually mentored me, who gave me all the advice and got me in. And then eventually it was Jamie Mortellero, who was the director who gave me that opportunity to get to have Harley that day. But those two, but Morgan was actually on this project, and he was talking to me. He was like, oh, I can't believe like all the success you're having with Resident Evil 2. That's so amazing. And the people on Gears team was like, oh, cool. Are you working on that? And like, they just thought like working, production or something. I worked on it. And then Morgan was like, yeah, she's Claire Redfield. And their faces were just like, what? We didn't even know you were an actress. Like, because I would just always just kind of like be like, hey, when I'm here, I let the actors be actors, and this is my role on the production side, and that's what I do. And so it was hilarious because for years people wouldn't even know. So the second they found out, we're like, oh my gosh, I love Resident Evil. I can't believe that you're Claire. It's blowing my mind. Now I hear it. Why didn't I hear it? Like, they were blown away, and they're like, can you please like voice like one of our COG female soldiers for the game? Like, sure. Like,
why not?
So it's so wild. Like it doesn't just happen all of a sudden. Like I think that there probably are people that kind of went that route. I personally did not. I actually built so many relationships before I even got an agent. So by the time I got an agent, it was because I was about to shoot the Netflix show for Resident Evil in Japan. It was because I had, a job for Star Wars lined up. It was because I had all these different things that were already happening. And I was just kind of getting tired of managing contracts and like schedules and things. And so I asked the director, who was so kind, who Taft-Hartley'd me and was like, hey, I'm like, I know you're friends with this one agent at an agency who's like really great. Do you think she could just help me through this one project? And so I reached out to her and she was like, sure. And she's like, we could test you out here if you'd like to. And sure enough, like I ended up booking a national commercial and way more jobs started coming through, way more auditions. And then it just kind of like all built. So, but it took a while. It took a little while. And everyone has such a different route of how it happens. But it does snowball because once it does start to go, it starts to go. So, but it isn't like just like a one day to the next, and even if I did book, like, I guess we'll say my breakout role was Resident Evil 2 when the world gets to really know who you are. But if you look underneath, like the iceberg memes, if you look underneath the iceberg, you see really all the work that went into it before everyone got to recognize. So.
Yeah. So now you mentioned motion capture. Let's talk a little bit about that. Because actually, I'm going to say, I think you're my first motion capture actress on here.
Really?
I believe so. I don't think I've talked to anybody who's done motion capture before.
Ooh, I love mocap. Okay, I call it mocap. Motion capture, performance capture. Goes by a lot of different names.
Mocap.
Yeah. Well, I'll give it, mocap, we're in the biz, or PCAP, depending on what you were doing. So, so I'll break it down for those people that don't know roughly what it is, and I always have to say it like this because I feel like people are like, oh yeah, that. Same way that they make the Avatar films, Planet of the Apes. We wear, the head cam. We've got little dots all over our face. Yeah. We've got like the little white shiny balls on the different parts of like where our body is gonna move, right? And so the difference is, so when I started, I don't think they do it quite as much now. There would be facial capture, there would be motion capture, which was your body performance, and then performance capture, which meant you were all of the above. And starting in my, in my line of work in my career, I was sometimes just the face to somebody who had already voiced it and already had mocapped it. That's a challenge. Or I was the mocap for something, or then eventually PCAP, depending on what project, I was on. So it's so much fun. I love performance capture or mocap, depending on what I'm doing. It is such a blast, honestly, because it really is. I don't think people realize it's on camera work.
Yeah.
Except it's completely surrounded. So it's like 4 walls of it. So you can't ever really escape it. You're not really playing to one camera. You're playing to the entire world. And it's a little more technical too. So you have to have like another understanding of things. You also have to understand how to like, in my case, like I love to like get like basic stunt training and gun training and all that stuff. So for me, I just felt like I wanted to do some of my own basic stunts. Mad props for like the straight up stunt people though, because I do have a bestie who is amazing. So like, but it's a lot of fun. It is a really, really wonderful side of the business that I thoroughly enjoy. And anytime I get to do it, I'm like stoked. It's also different from VO because in VO we have the script in front of us versus in performance capture we don't, so we have to be memorized. So it's just a little different.
Well, and that's so. This is my real question about it too. I mean, and you see all like the features on YouTube or on DVDs, whatever. But like you said, you're in this room, like as an actress, what's guiding you? Because I guess it's all green screen now. I don't think they really do blue screen anymore, but it's all green screen, right? So how do you know where that tree is and that bridge that you're walking across the river?
How
Like,
does that work? Yeah.
yeah.
So technically, so we're within a volume. So green screen, they'll usually do if they're going to do it, like superimpose it into like film, like live action film. So
Mhm.
ours is a volume, and it's like a big old room covered in like white padded walls with tons of cameras everywhere. And so what we'll do with that is that there will be sections marked off so that we kind of, or they'll be taped down so that we know that walls are there or whatever. And then we have like very, very basic setting props there. So if we're in a vehicle, we might be on like an Apple box, and there might be a steering wheel that they taped onto the Apple box or something along those lines so that we have an understanding of where things are at. But the other kind of cool thing is that if you look up, usually there'll be screens and they'll have in real time what a location in like very basic form looks like.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so we can kind of see that, oh, we're in a room. Oh, okay, I'm in a car. So it's like very like in cube form, very, very basic. But we'll also have, if it's a scene with other actors, we'll have actors there. So it's not like we're completely operating by ourselves like we would, let's say, an ADR in a video game where there usually there's not another actor there that we're playing off of. So yeah, and you also have a ton of people around you, like
Mhm.
all the technical side of people. And I love when we have to when we stop and then we have to T-pose and then, you're just like in the zone and then you have everything Velcroed onto you and people are prodding and pulling and like moving and adjusting things. You're like, I am here. I am Zen. I am still here. I'm still this character. Okay. T-pose. All right. I'm back in, so it's interesting. It's different, but very, very cool.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, there's traditional film and television now, but I mean, there's so much in the world of video games, VR. I mean, this really is the way of the future. You can be anywhere, and that's all really stemming from the mocap, as you call
Yeah.
it. So, so the next role I want to ask you about, because I imagine this must have been quite the process. You're on What If.
Mhm.
You played Betty Ross on What If. What was that process like? Because you became a part of the Marvel machine, and we know the world knows what that Marvel machine is like. What was it like auditioning for that? Because I mean, obviously you're coming in there, and I guess what their intention was. What If is because it was I can't think of the actress's name, Liv Tyler, who
Mhm.
played her initially. Were they looking, because they have like Mark Ruffalo was in the episode with you and everything. Did they come in and say, Stephanie, we want you to do Liv Tyler? Like, what was that like? Or did
Yeah.
they let
So,
you be your own Betty Ross?
I think that so this happened, they were casting before the pandemic started.
Hmm.
And then, or was it right at the beginning of pandemic? I honestly can't remember. I feel like it was right before, and then I booked it. And when they were asking for things, I feel like they wanted the feeling of her performance, as far as like not to stray away too much, but
Hmm.
they didn't want identical. So they wanted something with the essence of her performance. And then when I did it, I remember I was like, oh man, like, because she's pretty even keel with like her performance as far as like emotions and stuff goes.
Hmm.
She won't go like two in one direction or the other. And I remember, I mean, this is spoiler alert. If anyone hasn't seen my What If episode, I'm sorry.
Season
Close your
one.
yeah, just episode 3. Stay away from that one then until, don't listen to this until later. But the Hulk dies.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing. And like her character's never experienced that, And so I was like, well, I feel like I have to take her to different levels that she's never been. And I was, when I was talking to our director, Brian Andrews, like, I was like, hey, is it okay if I just really go there? And he's like, yes. He's like, we hired you for a reason. He's like, we want you to really go there. And I was like, okay, all right, then let's go. And it got emotional. It got emotional and it got like intense. So like as much as it's one episode, I got to really take Betty Ross through the whole gambit of
Yeah.
emotion. So which was really cool. And it's also kind of like a cool little like fun, she's kind of like this very like standoffish kind of like get out of my way, and then having to hide the Hulk, which was really fun. And let's just talk about the fact that like Mark Ruffalo, like I used to like, he was like in like my romantic, some of my favorite rom-coms.
Did you get to meet him or record with him?
No, because we recorded during pandemic.
Zoom recording?
No, unfortunately not. I actually had to do it. That was like when it was like super like, and by the way, if you work on anything Marvel, it is like super top secret. So like even to get the script, you have to go through all these hoops, and then you have to go through their particular website, and you have to have this one password and this one person sent through this one way. Like it was so intense. So I never got to. So it was really kind of cool to see it after the fact and be like, me and you, I'm technically was your girlfriend, but like not really, but we were girlfriend boyfriend like for a thing. So it was really neato. It was such a cool cast. I mean, just to be able to see the credits and be credited alongside crazy, like legit, like massive cast members was really, really neat. So definitely a cool project. I love it. They sent me my like coin. I wish I had it on me right now. It's in my office, but it was like a cool like remembrance coin about like what we did and stuff. It was just a really neat project. Yeah, I loved it.
I mean, and like you mentioned what, bringing the Liv Tyler character to, or Betty Ross to, all these different emotions. I mean, the one thing with that particular episode too, like Marvel's been, I don't even know when the first Hulk movie it was at the Ed Norton iteration that had Liv Tyler in it, and obviously Mark came in and took over, but she was only in one movie. And just been gone, I mean, probably almost like, 15, 20 years since that movie at this point now, which is crazy when you really think of the grand scheme of thing. But you came back and brought this character back to life who the audience hadn't seen in the longest time. So also
with the new Hulk. Yeah.
Exactly, with the new Hulk. So,
which I thought was funny too, because people didn't realize that like she's actually the original girlfriend. Like it wasn't Black Widow.
Yeah.
And like people like got used to the new films, and I'm like, whoa, everybody, let's go back to our comics, okay? Let's start reading up on some stuff.
So, and I mean, who knows that you maybe. Obviously, you're not going to say, but who knows? Maybe Betty Ross will be back again in What If again, because I know they're still doing it. I know Liv Tyler's coming back for the movie. There's a new movie with it, so maybe that's going to get people are interested in that character again, and we'll see you in What If again, hopefully.
Who knows?
So it's another great show. So we got Saratoga coming up this weekend. Yeah. You love going out there and meeting your fans. What are some of your favorite fan experiences when you meet folks?
Ooh, that's a good question. Some of my favorite. So I'm gonna get a little bit deep, but here we'll start lighter first. Okay. One of my favorite experiences was one of my very few like first conventions. Might have been my first like official convention that was over in DC, and I actually was a part of a proposal. So yeah. So like somebody out there right now, I don't know if they're married now, but I helped with that proposal, and it was really cool. It was really fun. She had no idea. I was like, I had seen them throughout the show a couple times, and then he was actually by himself at one of my panels, and he came by and he asked my handler, like, hey, is it okay if I asked Stephanie to help me with this? And so my handler came over, is like, hey, he's like, are you cool with this? Like, I don't know. And I was like, yeah, let's do it, and so he's like, oh, I don't know how to ask this, but like, would you be okay with this? And I was like, of course. And then he's like, I can meet you anywhere at the convention, however you want. And I was like, whoa. I said, yes. So this is happening like in a real way. We're not just going to meet at the convention somewhere. I was like, where's the closest police station is what I said, because Claire and Leon meet at the police station. So I was like, where's the closest police station? Funny enough, it was 1 block down from the convention.
Oh, great.
And it gets better. So I dressed in like kind of like the red leather vest. And I met him and I said, let's meet somewhere. And then I was like, where could we meet? On the exact same road was a restaurant called Leon. So I legit met him in front of Leon. We walked over to meet her at the police station. She was like, whoa, why are you here? You know, she was like, she didn't even know how to act. And then I was like, oh, yeah, no, I was actually going to do a photo shoot here. And I just happened to bump into your boyfriend. And so she was like so shocked. And then I was like, you know, I was like, hey, just like in RE2, how there could be no Claire without Leon. I said, there could be no you without. And then that's how it started. He was down on one knee and it was awesome. And so it was really cool. It's one of my favorite experiences, I would say, because there's this great photo of me earlier in the show, like picking her up like Sherry. And then there's a picture of him picking her up. And I was like, oh, she didn't get swept off her feet just once. You know? So that was a great one. That's a really great experience.
It's, you know, it's building memories like that. Those people are always going to remember that.
100%. I feel like I always get something out of going to shows. Like I think I'm also just, I really love people. I know that's weird to say, but like, you know, with my studies, like I did poli-sci and international affairs, but I did a lot of studies in like anthropology and sociology and philosophy and like just the understanding of like culture and humanity as a whole, I guess.
Yeah.
So I have fun at shows and I really enjoy it. And I've actually had some really awesome experiences of like some really strong people that have been through some really tough times. And some people like don't necessarily want to say something, but eventually like they open up in a way with me and it becomes like a really cool healing experience and like fun experience for both of us, you know? And so that's the really cool part about it is that if you come to my table, you're not just going to get an autograph or a photo. You're probably going to get some sort of experience there. Right. So, yeah.
That's and you know, and what you said too is like there are people who sometimes are intimidated, and I think first of all, everybody needs to know everybody's a human being, you know, and obviously Stephanie, you're fantastic. You know, you're not those other people who are like, we don't know about you were saying earlier. Go watch and go and see Stephanie. But yeah, it really is that experience, and I mean, I've worked so many shows and worked with so many different people and talked to so many people, and I mean. The one thing I always just like seeing from that side are those people who come up and say, you know, this movie, this game, this thing that you did, you know, helped me through X, Y, and Z. Because that's when you're sitting there recording, you know, you don't get to see all those things, you know, and this is where you really get to see what your work does for folks, which is powerful stuff.
Oh, it's super powerful. Like, you know, and it's funny because I was a gamer as a kid and I was a giant like Tomb Raider fan. And so I was heavily influenced by it. And like I rock climb till this day. I love to travel and I love cargo pants. Like, you know, like I studied even anthropology and archaeology classes because of Tomb Raider, like got me influenced. So I knew that there was a level of like importance and relatability to characters, and I knew what it was like, but I didn't know to the extent in some ways. And so that's like really cool and really touching, and sometimes like also can be a lot sometimes to like know, you know. And so but it always feels, it's always such like, I guess it's always just such an honor to know when like you were a part of someone's life in a really crucial moment.
Yeah.
And you didn't even realize it. So so I don't take that lightly. So yeah.
Yeah, and just for like that couple, you were always be an important part of their life, you know. So that's huge, you know, and again, the real the magic behind the work that you do, which is awesome. So before we wrap up here, I have you down here. People can find you on Instagram. Any place else where people can find you?
Well, on TikTok as well, for as long as it stays in business, we'll find out. Controversial. So you can find me on there. You can also find me on Twitch.
That's what I want to ask you about, because I Claire.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I'm the only Stephanie Panisello in the world. So if you're like, I don't even know how to find her, just literally Google Stephanie Panisello. Yeah, so Twitch. I'm on there as Because I Claire. If I'm really good about it, I will repost those onto my YouTube channel as well. But I'm not always that good at it, but definitely on Twitch, I'm good. So Because I Claire, that came to be, it's an homage to, my, one of the lines that Claire says in RE2 actually, which is, when Sherry looks up at her and she's like, why are you helping me? And she just very simply says, because I care, And so that to me was it's just a very simple origin meaning, like the whole reason she does everything. And so I carried that into this Twitch channel. It kind of started around, I think I started it right before the pandemic or right after the pandemic, something, or right in that time frame. Yeah. And it stuck, and it's an amazing community. I feel very blessed. And the beginning of it, I didn't even have mods. People were shocked how people behaved so well with no mods in there. And now I do, to be fair. So nobody tried anything. But it's been so fabulous. It's a great community. I go on, nowadays it's Tuesdays and Thursdays. Tuesdays I'm playing Genshin Impact for all my Genshin Impact fans out there too, which I play Shen Yun, also known as Cloud Retainer, in that game. And so I've been playing that, which is a massive game. It's been quite a learning curve, but I play that on Tuesdays. And then on Thursdays, I finished up Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 4 DLC. Okay. So I'll probably be starting up. I haven't said what I'm going to start up yet. It's been a secret. But I'll let you guys in on a couple options here. Okay. It might be the newest Tomb Raider, or sorry, the old remasters of the Tomb Raiders 1, 2, 3, potentially. Nice. Or there might be a curveball and I play The Last of Us 2. I don't know. I'm debating. So I don't know. But anyways, variety streaming. So
good choices. So people can check it out Tuesday and Thursdays on Twitch, Because I Claire, and then find you on all social media.
All the social medias, yeah.
Because you're the only one, the one and only.
The one and only.
Which is a good thing, so people can always find you. And of course, then, like we said, this weekend, if you're in the New York area, I mean, if you're down in New York City, it's about 3.5, 4 hours away-ish, depending on traffic. But obviously, if you're in the central New York area, up by Albany, you're right around the corner. So anybody who's up in that neck of the woods definitely should come and see Stephanie at Saratoga this week.
Yes, please come see me. You guys, I'm a New Yorker, okay? Originally New York, okay? I got my street cred. I moved when I was 9, but I'm still cool like that, okay? So come and see me, please. I love New York. I've always had a love for it, so it'll be a whole lot of fun. I've never been at a convention up that way, so it'll actually be the first time. So I'm excited to see you guys, and I cannot wait. Awesome. Oh, and I'll be there with Leon. Hello. Nick Apostolides is going to be in the house with me, so it'll be a blast.
It's going to be a good time. Saratoga is a great town. So much to do. So, and hopefully the weather's going to be nice. It was like 70 some odd degrees here in New York today, so it was great. So I'm hoping this weekend it's the same way. So hopefully, but Stephanie, thank you so much for doing this tonight. I'm looking forward to seeing you in person this weekend at Saratoga. And for everybody at home, thanks again for watching, and thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. We'll see you guys.